Deep in Alaska's interior, where aurora lights dance across endless winter nights, some scientific mysteries refuse explanation. On February 17, 2023, Bush pilot Tommy Kowalski made his scheduled supply run to the Aurora Research Station, 37 miles northeast of Fairbanks, Alaska. The isolated facility, perched on a ridge overlooking the Chena River Valley, had been his monthly destination for 3 years. He knew the routine: land on the gravel strip, unload supplies, chat briefly with Dr. Elena Vasquez about weather conditions and aurora activity, then head back to civilization. But as Kowalski's Cessna 206 touched down that crisp February morning, something felt wrong. The station's main building sat silent against the wide expanse of interior Alaska wilderness. No smoke rose from the chimney despite temperatures hovering at -20 Fahrenheit. More troubling, there was no sign of Dr. Vasquez, who always met incoming flights with characteristic punctuality. Kowalski found the station's front door unlocked. Inside, the scene was puzzling rather than alarming. Coffee sat cold in a mug on the kitchen table, as if someone had stepped away mid-morning and simply forgotten to return. Personal belongings remained undisturbed. Reading glasses on the desk, a half-finished crossword puzzle, boots lined up neatly by the door. Everything suggested normal routine, interrupted, not violence or struggle. In the main research lab, banks of computers hummed quietly, their screens displaying real-time atmospheric data from sensors scattered across the surrounding forest. Aurora monitoring equipment continued its automated vigil, recording electromagnetic field fluctuations and solar wind measurements. According to the timestamps, the systems had been running continuously without human oversight for at least 18 hours. Kowalski tried raising Dr. Vasquez on the station radio. Static answered back. He checked the generator building, the equipment shed, even the small greenhouse where she grew vegetables during the brief interior Alaska summer. No sign of the atmospheric physicist who had made this remote outpost her home for the past 2 years. A brief search outside the main building revealed something peculiar. Fresh boot prints in the snow led from the station toward the electromagnetic sensor array, a collection of sensitive instruments positioned roughly 200 yards to the north. The tracks were clear and purposeful, showing no signs of struggle or distress. But at a point approximately 50 meters from the sensor array perimeter, they simply stopped. Not as if covered by snowfall. There had been no new snow in 3 days, but as if the person making them had somehow lifted off the ground. Kowalski, a Vietnam veteran with 30 years of bush flying experience, had seen plenty of strange things in Alaska's wilderness. But the complete absence of continuation tracks, of any sign where Dr. Vasquez might have gone from that point, left him genuinely unsettled. He radioed the Alaska State Troopers from the station's communication equipment, reporting a missing person at the Aurora Research Station. By evening, Trooper Sergeant Maria Santos arrived via helicopter with a search team from Fairbanks. The initial sweep confirmed Kowalski's observations. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the National Science Foundation's lead atmospheric physicist at the remote research facility, had vanished without explanation during peak aurora season, leaving behind her life's work and more questions than answers. Dr. Elena Maria Vasquez had built her career chasing the northern lights. At 38, she was considered one of the world's leading experts in magnetospheric dynamics, the complex interactions between Earth's magnetic field and charged particles streaming from the sun. Her path to the Aurora Research Station began at MIT, where her doctoral dissertation on electromagnetic field fluctuations during geomagnetic storms earned recognition from the National Science Foundation. Colleagues described Vasquez as brilliant but unconventional. Dr. Richard Chen, her former advisor at MIT, remembered her tendency to pursue theories that other scientists considered fringe. Elena saw patterns where others saw noise, Chen told investigators. She had an intuitive grasp of electromagnetic phenomena that bordered on the supernatural. Sometimes she'd predict aurora activity days before our models showed anything. What drew Vasquez to the remote Alaska station was freedom to test her most controversial hypothesis, that aurora phenomena generated electromagnetic frequencies similar to human brainwave patterns. Traditional atmospheric physics explained auroras as purely mechanical interactions between solar particles and Earth's magnetosphere. But Vasquez believed something more complex was occurring, a kind of electromagnetic consciousness that emerged during intense geomagnetic activity. Her research notes, recovered from the station, revealed an increasingly intense focus on what she termed anomalous readings during the weeks before her disappearance. Equipment logs showed she had been working 18-hour days, often forgetting to eat or sleep as she tracked subtle variations in electromagnetic patterns. Her handwriting became more erratic, her technical observations interspersed with personal reflections about communication attempts and response frequencies. The last official communication from Dr. Vasquez came during a routine check-in call to the National Science Foundation office in Fairbanks on February 14th, 2 days before her disappearance. According to NSF Program Director, Dr. James Thurston, Vasquez sounded excited but exhausted. She mentioned a breakthrough discovery regarding frequency matching between aurora-generated electromagnetic fields and human neural oscillations. She was talking rapidly, almost breathlessly, Thurston recalled in his statement to investigators. Elena said she had recorded something unprecedented, electromagnetic patterns that seemed to respond to human brainwave activity. She wanted to schedule an immediate conference call with our Washington office. I told her to get some rest first and we'd talk in the morning. That was the last time anyone heard from her. Review of her personal emails revealed growing isolation and obsession. Messages to her sister in New Mexico became sporadic and disjointed. Something incredible is happening here, she had written in her final email, sent at 11:47 p.m. on February 15th. The aurora isn't just light. It's trying to communicate. I know how that sounds, but the data doesn't lie. The frequencies match perfectly. Tonight I'm going to try something different. i.e., her research had attracted attention beyond academic circles. Financial records showed that in addition to her NSF grant, Vasquez had received supplemental funding from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. The military connection wasn't unusual. DARPA had funded atmospheric research for decades, particularly studies related to radio communication and surveillance technologies. But the specific focus of their interest in her work remained classified. Local residents had noticed changes in Dr. Vasquez's behavior during the months before her disappearance. Sarah Tanner, who ran supplies from Fairbanks to various research stations, remembered Vasquez becoming increasingly reclusive. She used to be chatty, always asking about my family, my grandfather's stories about the old days, Tanner said. But lately, she seemed distracted, like she was listening to something the rest of us couldn't hear. The research station's equipment revealed the scope of Vasquez's final investigations. She had modified several instruments beyond their original specifications, creating what appeared to be a comprehensive electromagnetic monitoring network. Data logs showed she had been tracking not just aurora activity, but also radio frequencies, magnetic field variations, and even low-frequency electromagnetic patterns typically associated with neurological activity. Most intriguingly, her final weeks of research showed clear evidence of pattern recognition attempts. Computer files contained thousands of hours of recorded electromagnetic data, with segments highlighted and marked with notes like response sequence and adaptive pattern. Whether these represented natural phenomena or something more mysterious would become a central question in the investigation of her disappearance. The disappearance of Dr. Elena Vasquez triggered an immediate federal response that surprised even experienced Alaska state troopers. Within hours of Sergeant Santos filing her initial report, FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen arrived from Anchorage with a team of specialists. The swift federal involvement, unusual for a missing person case in rural Alaska, suggested that Dr. Vasquez's research carried implications beyond academic curiosity. Special Agent Chen, a 20-year veteran with expertise in cases involving sensitive government research, took charge of the investigation on February 18th. Her first action was to secure the Aurora research station as a potential crime scene, though she emphasized to local media that no evidence of foul play had been discovered. The federal jurisdiction claim rested on the facility's National Science Foundation funding and its connections to classified Defense Department projects. Dr. Vasquez was conducting research under federal grants with national security implications, Chen explained during a brief press conference in Fairbanks. We're treating this as a missing person case, but given the sensitive nature of her work, federal oversight is appropriate. She declined to elaborate on the specific security concerns or the nature of the classified connections. NSF Program Director James Thurston provided more context during his interview with investigators. Vasquez's search, while primarily focused on basic atmospheric science, had attracted interest from DARPA's Atmospheric Modification Program. The military applications were theoretical but potentially significant. If electromagnetic fields generated during aurora activity could be predicted and influenced, they might provide new methods for long-range communication or even electromagnetic countermeasures. The technology was decades away from practical application, Thurston insisted. Elena was doing pure research, trying to understand natural phenomena. But, yes, there were potential dual-use implications that DARPA found interesting. Financial records confirmed that approximately 30% of Vasquez's research funding came from classified military sources, though the specific projects remained heavily redacted in documents released to investigators. The federal response includes specialists whose presence raised additional questions. Dr. Michael Foster, an expert in electromagnetic anomalies from the Naval Research Laboratory, arrived on February 19th to examine the station's equipment. His official role involved determining whether sensitive technologies had been compromised, but his background in psychological operations and electromagnetic warfare suggested broader concerns. Meanwhile, the investigation received an unexpected perspective from Joseph Tanner, an Athabascan elder and traditional knowledge keeper from the nearby village of Chenna Hot Springs. Tanner contacted authorities after hearing news reports about the disappearance. His information added a troubling historical dimension to the case. That place where the research station sits, it's always been different, Tanner told investigators through his granddaughter, Rebecca, who served as translator. Our people have stories going back generations about the lights in that area. They're not like regular northern lights. They move with purpose, like they're alive. And sometimes, people who get too close to them don't come back. No, the only case is shower. Tanner's account gained credibility when investigators discovered similar disappearances in historical records. Archives at the University of Alaska Fairbanks contained references to at least 3 unexplained vanishings near the research station site over the past century. A gold prospector in 1923, a military surveyor in 1954, and a graduate student studying atmospheric phenomena in 1987. Each case involved individuals who disappeared without trace during periods of intense aurora activity. The military connection deepened when investigators learned that the current research station had been built on the site of a Cold War-era communications facility. Declassified documents revealed that from 1952 to 1971, the U.S. Air Force had operated a classified project investigating atmospheric effects on radio communications. The project, code-named Arctic Mirror, had been abruptly terminated following what official records described only as equipment failures and personnel difficulties. Dr. Foster's examination of the station's electromagnetic equipment revealed anomalies that troubled even experienced investigators. Several instruments showed readings that exceeded their design specifications, suggesting exposure to electromagnetic fields far beyond typical aurora activity. More puzzling, the equipment continued to register these anomalous readings even during periods when no aurora activity was visible or predicted. The instruments are detecting something, Foster reported to the investigation team. Whether it's natural phenomena we don't understand, equipment malfunction, or something else entirely, I can't determine from the available data. His preliminary report, partially classified, recommended continued monitoring of the site and restrictions on future research activities. As federal resources poured into the investigation, local residents grew increasingly concerned about the level of attention focused on what many assumed was a straightforward missing person case. The presence of military specialists, classified research documents, and historical disappearances suggested that Dr. Elena Vasquez had vanished into something far more complex than the Alaska wilderness. The Aurora Research Station's computer systems told a story that investigators were only beginning to understand. Digital forensics specialist agent Maria Santos from the FBI's Cyber Division flew in from Anchorage on February 20th, 2023, carrying specialized equipment designed to work in the extreme cold. What Santos found on Dr. Vasquez's workstation defied explanation. In the 6 hours before her disappearance, someone had initiated massive data downloads from the National Science Foundation's atmospheric database. Terabytes of Aurora research spanning 30 years had been pulled from servers across the country. The transfer rate indicated access to classified military atmospheric modification data that Vasquez shouldn't have been able to reach. The bandwidth alone should have been impossible, Santos later reported to the joint FBI-NSF task force. Our facility internet runs on satellite uplink with maybe 10 megabits per second on a good day. Yet the logs show sustained transfer rates of over a gigabit per second. The physics don't work. No, to me. More troubling were the electromagnetic readings captured by the station's own monitoring equipment. Dr. Vasquez's research focused on measuring the electrical and magnetic signatures of aurora activity. But the data recorded between 11:47 p.m. and 11:52 p.m. on February 16th showed electromagnetic patterns unlike anything in the scientific literature. The readings began normally, consistent with the moderate aurora activity visible that night. Then, at exactly 11:49 p.m., the instruments detected what could only be described as a coordinated electromagnetic pulse. Multiple sensors recorded simultaneous spikes in electrical activity across frequencies ranging from extremely low to very high-frequency bands. The pattern repeated every 37 seconds for exactly 3 minutes. "I have been studying magnetospheric physics for 25 years," said Dr. Robert Kim from the University of Alaska's Geophysical Institute. "Natural aurora phenomena don't create coordinated pulses like this. The precision, the timing, the frequency coherence, it's artificial. Someone or something was generating these signals. The station's security cameras added another layer to the mystery. The system consisted of 8 high-definition cameras positioned around the research facility, designed to operate in extreme temperatures and low-light conditions. 6 cameras functioned normally throughout the night of February 16th. The other 2 captured something extraordinary. Camera 3, positioned near the main electromagnetic sensor array, recorded what appeared to be aurora-like phenomena occurring inside the research station itself. Ribbons of green and blue light danced across the laboratory walls at the exact time the electromagnetic pulses were detected. The phenomena lasted 3 minutes and 17 seconds, then vanished as suddenly as they appeared. Camera 7, facing the communications antenna array, showed similar light phenomena surrounding the radio equipment. But this camera captured something else. A human figure moving deliberately through the electromagnetic displays. The image quality degraded significantly during the light phenomena, making identification impossible. But the figure appeared to be interacting with the equipment, reaching toward control panels even as aurora-like energy swirled around them. The person in the video could be Dr. Vasquez, acknowledged FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen, who led the federal investigation. The height and build are consistent, but the image distortion makes positive identification possible. What we can say is that someone was present in the facility when these unexplained electromagnetic events occurred. The station's radio telescope array provided the final piece of the technological puzzle. These sensitive instruments, designed to detect radio emissions from space, recorded coordinated electromagnetic pulses in the hours leading up to Dr. Vasquez's disappearance. The pulses originated from multiple points across Alaska and northwestern Canada, suggesting a network of transmission sources. Dr. Patricia Wolf, director of the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, analyzed the telescope data. The signals show characteristics of both artificial transmission and natural atmospheric phenomena, she reported. It's as if someone was using the natural electromagnetic properties of aurora activity to coordinate artificial signals across vast distances. The implications were staggering. If the data was accurate, someone had developed the ability to manipulate aurora phenomena for communication or other purposes. The technology would represent a breakthrough in atmospheric physics, with obvious military applications. NSF Program Director James Thurston confirmed that Dr. Vasquez's research had indeed touched on potential military applications of aurora manipulation. Elena was brilliant, Thurston stated in his official interview. Her work on aurora-generated electromagnetic fields had caught attention from several federal agencies, but we never imagined the technology could be weaponized or used for surveillance. The computer analysis revealed one final detail that chilled investigators. Dr. Vasquez's personal research notes, stored on an encrypted drive, contained references to consciousness interface protocols and biological electromagnetic synchronization. The notes suggested she believed aurora phenomena could directly interact with human neural activity. Her final entry, dated February 16th at 6:23 p.m. read, The frequencies match. Human brainwave patterns synchronize with electromagnetic aurora signatures at specific resonance points. Tonight's forecast shows optimal conditions. If the theory is correct, consciousness itself might be transmissible through aurora phenomena. 5 hours later, Dr. Elena Vasquez vanished, leaving behind only electromagnetic anomalies and more questions than answers. Joseph Tanner had been watching the aurora dance across Alaska's skies for 73 years. As a traditional knowledge keeper for the Chena Hot Springs community, the Athabascan elder understood that some stories carried truth beyond the reach of modern science. When Alaska State Troopers contacted him on February 21st, 2023, asking about the area surrounding the Aurora Research Station, Tanner's response was immediate. You should have asked us before you built there. The research station sat on the land that Athabascan people had avoided for generations. Traditional stories spoke of this location as a crossing place, where the spirit world touched the physical realm during aurora displays. Tanner's grandmother had warned him as a child never to camp in that valley during the winter months, when the northern lights danced strongest. She told me the spirits could take you if you weren't careful, Tanner explained to investigators during their interview at the Chena Hot Springs Community Center. Not bad spirits necessarily, but powerful ones. They live in the lights, and sometimes they invite people to come with them. No, the stories weren't mere superstition. Tanner possessed detailed oral histories dating back over 2 centuries, passed down through his family line. At least 7 disappearances had occurred in the immediate area of the research station since the 1800s. Trappers, hunters, and travelers who vanished during periods of intense aurora activity, leaving no trace despite extensive searches. The lights called to certain people, Tanner continued. Usually those who spend too much time trying to understand them. My great-grandfather told stories about a Russian fur trader who studied the aurora with instruments. One night in 1847, the lights came down to the ground. The trader walked into them and was never seen again. On mine. Traditional ecological knowledge provided additional context that modern science had overlooked. Athabascan hunters had long observed that caribou avoided the research station area during aurora seasons. Sled dogs became agitated and refused commands when traveling through the valley. Even ravens, normally curious about human activity, gave the location wide berth during winter months. Animals know, Tanner explained. They feel the electromagnetic changes before we do. The old people taught us to watch animal behavior to understand the land. If the animals won't go somewhere, maybe we shouldn't either. Tanner's granddaughter, Rebecca Tanner Charlie, brought a unique perspective to the investigation. An electrical engineer who had graduated from University of Alaska Fairbanks, she worked for the state's energy authority while maintaining strong connections to traditional knowledge. Her technical expertise, combined with cultural understanding, offered insights that neither scientists nor traditionalists could provide alone. Grandfather's stories about spirit lights touching the ground make perfect sense from an electromagnetic perspective, Rebecca explained during her interview with federal investigators. Aurora phenomena create powerful electromagnetic fields. Under certain atmospheric conditions, those fields could extend much lower than normally observed, even reaching ground level. She had researched the intersection of traditional knowledge and electromagnetic science extensively. Her findings suggested that indigenous observations about aurora behavior were remarkably accurate, predating Western scientific understanding by centuries. Traditional stories describe aurora as conscious entities that could communicate with humans, Rebecca continued. Modern physics shows that electromagnetic fields can interfere with human neural activity. The old stories might be describing actual neurological effects caused by exposure to intense electromagnetic fields. The timing of Dr. Vasquez's disappearance aligned perfectly with traditional warnings about aurora activity. Joseph Tanner had consulted traditional seasonal calendars and astronomical observations maintained by community elders. February 16th marked the peak of what Athabascan knowledge keepers called the speaking time, a period when aurora phenomena were believed to be most interactive with human consciousness. Elena came to see me 3 months before she disappeared, Tanner revealed. She wanted to understand traditional stories about the aurora. Smart woman, respectful. But I could tell she was getting too close to something dangerous. Dr. Vasquez had recorded extensive interviews with Tanner and other knowledge keepers during late 2022. The recordings, discovered among her research materials, showed her growing fascination with indigenous perspectives on aurora consciousness. She had begun incorporating traditional seasonal timing into her research schedule, aligning her observations with periods when elders said the lights were most awake. Rebecca Tanner Charlie analyzed the correlation between traditional aurora calendars and the electromagnetic data from the research station. The results were striking. The strongest electromagnetic anomalies consistently occur during what our traditional knowledge identifies as peak interaction periods, she reported. Science is finally catching up to what our people have observed for generations. The cultural implications extended beyond scientific curiosity. For Athabascan people, the aurora represented a living connection to ancestors and spiritual realms. Dr. Vasquez's research into consciousness interface protocols touched on sacred knowledge that required respectful approach and proper protocols. Traditional knowledge teaches that you don't just study the aurora, Joseph Tanner explained. You participate in relationship with it. Elena was brilliant, but she approached it like a specimen instead of a relative. That kind of relationship can be dangerous. The investigation had revealed no evidence of foul play, no signs of accident or violence. But traditional knowledge offered a different framework for understanding disappearance. In Athabascan worldview, crossing into the spirit realm didn't require death. It required invitation and acceptance. Maybe she didn't disappear, Tanner suggested quietly. Maybe she was invited somewhere else, somewhere science can't follow. The lights have their own intelligence, their own purposes. Sometimes they choose people to come with them. As winter deepened and the investigation continued, Joseph Tanner maintained traditional protocols for the missing. He conducted ceremonies asking the aurora spirits to keep Dr. Vasquez safe, wherever her journey had taken her. Science might never explain what happened, but traditional knowledge provided a context for accepting mystery itself as a form of truth. The search for Dr. Elena Vasquez began at first light on February 18, 2023, when Alaska State Troopers coordinated the largest missing person operation in the Fairbanks North Star Borough since 2018. Master Sergeant David Rodriguez deployed search and rescue teams equipped with state-of-the-art technology, specifically designed for Alaska's extreme conditions. The initial ground team consisted of 12 experienced searchers, including members of the Alaska Mountain Rescue Group and volunteers from local mushing communities. They carried thermal imaging equipment capable of detecting body heat signatures through snow and vegetation, up to distances of 2 miles. Ground-penetrating radar units could identify disturbances in permafrost that might indicate burial sites or hidden objects. Search operations faced immediate complications that defied explanation. The thermal imaging equipment, tested and calibrated before deployment, began malfunctioning within hours of arriving at the research station. Devices showed phantom heat signatures that disappeared when teams moved to investigate. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly, sometimes showing thermal anomalies of over 300 degrees Fahrenheit in areas where surface snow remained undisturbed. "I've been doing search and rescue for 15 years, stated team leader Mike Patterson in his official report. "I've never seen equipment behavior like this. Our thermal imagers worked perfectly at every test location until we got within a half-mile radius of that research station. Then they started showing readings that made no sense." The ground-penetrating radar produced equally puzzling results. The units detected what appeared to be large metallic objects buried in permafrost that should have been solid for thousands of years. When teams excavated these locations, they found nothing but frozen soil and root systems. The radar signatures would shift overnight, appearing in different locations by morning as if the buried objects were moving. Search dogs presented perhaps the most troubling complications. The Alaska State Troopers deployed 3 cadaver dogs and 2 tracking dogs, all with extensive experience in wilderness search operations. The dogs' behavior became increasingly erratic as they approached the electromagnetic sensor array that marked the boundary of Dr. Vasquez's research area. Canine handler Patricia Kowalski documented the dogs' unusual responses. "My dogs have worked in every kind of terrain Alaska can throw at them," she reported. "But when we got near those sensor arrays, they started acting like they were being shocked, whimpering, backing away, refusing commands. These are dogs trained to work in life-threatening conditions, and they were genuinely afraid." The dogs' distress seemed to correlate directly with electromagnetic field strength. Areas showing the highest electromagnetic readings on the research station's monitoring equipment were precisely the locations where the animals became most agitated. Some dogs would approach to within 50 feet of the sensor arrays, then refuse to move closer despite their handlers' encouragement. Aerial search operations encountered similar technological complications. Alaska State Troopers deployed 2 helicopters equipped with flare thermal imaging systems and high-resolution cameras. The aircraft could maintain visual contact with ground teams while covering vast areas of terrain impossible to search on foot. Pilot Captain Sarah Chen commanded the primary search helicopter, a Bell 407 modified for Arctic operations. Her experience included over 3,000 flight hours in Alaska conditions ranging from whiteout blizzards to summer wildfire smoke. But the electromagnetic phenomena surrounding the research station presented challenges she had never encountered. Navigation instruments started going haywire about 2 miles out from the research station, Chen reported to investigators. GPS readings would jump around by hundreds of yards. Compass headings shifted without any change in aircraft orientation. Radio communications became filled with static that sounded almost like patterns, like someone was trying to communicate through the interference. The navigation failures proved dangerous during one search sortie on February 20th. Chen's helicopter experienced complete GPS failure while conducting a grid search pattern over the sensor array area. The aircraft's compass began spinning freely, and radio contact with ground teams was lost for 18 minutes. Only Chen's exceptional piloting skills and intimate knowledge of local landmarks prevented a potentially fatal emergency landing. "I've flown in every kind of weather Alaska can produce," Chen stated. "But this was different. It felt like the aircraft was being actively interfered with, not just affected by natural phenomena. The electromagnetic readings were off the charts, but they seemed purposeful, coordinated." Fixed-wing aircraft faced similar challenges. The Alaska Civil Air Patrol contributed 2 Cessna 172s equipped for search operations, but both aircraft experienced navigation system failures, when flying over the research station area. Pilots reported that their aircraft instruments would function normally until entering a specific altitude range above the electromagnetic anomaly zone, then fail completely. Search coordinators adapted their operations to work around the technological complications, but the limitations significantly reduced search effectiveness. Teams were forced to rely on visual observation and traditional navigation techniques rather than modern electronic systems. The search radius was expanded to compensate for reduced efficiency, but the electromagnetic interference zone remained largely inaccessible to systematic search. After 6 days of intensive operations, search teams had covered over 400 square miles of terrain. They had investigated every structure, cave, ravine, and potential shelter within a 20-mile radius of the research station. Divers had searched accessible sections of the Chena River system despite dangerous ice conditions. Ground teams had followed every trail, animal path, and vehicle track that might indicate Dr. Vasquez's route of travel. The search produced no evidence of Dr. Vasquez's passage or fate. No footprints beyond the boundary of the sensor array. No personal items. No disturbed vegetation or snow that might indicate her route. The electromagnetic interference had prevented thorough investigation of the most likely areas where she might have traveled, leaving a gap in search coverage that frustrated investigators. "We did everything humanly possible with the resources available," Master Sergeant Rodriguez concluded in his final search report. But the technological complications prevented complete search of critical areas. The electromagnetic phenomena created a blind spot in our search capabilities that may have concealed evidence of Dr. Vasquez's fate. And yes, Laura was sorry. By February 24th, active search operations were officially suspended due to deteriorating weather conditions and exhaustion of immediate leads. The case remained open, but the mysterious technological complications had created more questions than answers about what had happened to Dr. Elena Vasquez. 8 months have passed since Dr. Elena Vasquez vanished from the Aurora Research Station, and the case remains one of Alaska's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. Despite extensive federal investigation involving the FBI, NSF, and multiple military agencies, no trace of the missing atmospheric physicist has ever been found. The research station itself stands abandoned, its sophisticated monitoring equipment still collecting data on aurora phenomena 24 hours a day. The electromagnetic anomalies that complicated the original search operation continue to occur with increasing frequency and intensity. Recent readings suggest the phenomena are not diminishing over time, but rather growing stronger and more coordinated. Dr. Marcus Webb from the National Science Foundation attempted to resume research operations in June 2023. His team lasted exactly 3 days before requesting immediate evacuation. The electromagnetic interference has become so intense that basic equipment no longer functions reliably, Webb reported to NSF administrators. But more disturbing is the sense that something is actively observing and responding to our presence. The abandoned station's computer systems continue to operate autonomously, downloading atmospheric data from satellites and ground stations across North America. Analysis of this ongoing data stream has revealed patterns that defy conventional scientific explanation. The electromagnetic signatures now appear at Aurora research facilities worldwide, suggesting a coordinated global phenomenon centered on Dr. Vasquez's original research locations. Similar electromagnetic anomalies have been reported at Aurora monitoring stations in Norway, Iceland, and northern Canada. In each case, the phenomena began shortly after Dr. Vasquez's disappearance and have intensified over time. Researchers at these facilities report equipment malfunctions, unusual electromagnetic readings, and an inexplicable sense of being watched during aurora activity. Dr. Patricia Wolf from the National Radio Astronomy Observatory has been tracking the global spread of these anomalies. What we're seeing suggests either a natural phenomenon we don't understand or a technology far beyond our current capabilities, she stated in a classified report obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests. The coordination between sites thousands of miles apart implies some form of communication or control system The FBI investigation, led by Special Agent Sarah Chen, has expanded to include interviews with atmospheric researchers worldwide. The pattern emerging from these interviews is troubling. Scientists studying aurora consciousness interfaces report similar experiences to Dr. Vasquez in the months before her disappearance. Dreams of electromagnetic communication, obsession with frequency patterns, and growing conviction that aurora phenomena possess some form of intelligence. 3 researchers at different facilities have taken extended leave from their positions, citing overwhelming electromagnetic sensitivity and invasive consciousness experiences. 2 others have relocated to areas with minimal aurora activity, claiming they could no longer tolerate exposure to electromagnetic fields associated with their research. "There's something in Elena's research that opened a door we may not be able to close," confided Dr. Robert Kim from the University of Alaska's Geophysical Institute. Kim has assumed oversight of Dr. Vasquez's research files, but admits he's afraid to fully investigate her final theoretical frameworks. Her notes about consciousness interface protocols describe interactions between human neural activity and electromagnetic fields that border on science fiction. But the data supports her theories. Joseph Tanner continues to monitor the situation from his traditional knowledge perspective. The Athabascan elder reports that aurora activity in the research station area has become increasingly aggressive, according to traditional observational methods. Wildlife avoidance of the region has expanded to a radius of over 10 miles, and local subsistence hunters report unusual electromagnetic effects on their equipment when operating in the area. "The spirits are restless," Tanner observed during a recent interview. "Elena's research disturbs something that should have been left alone. The lights are looking for others like her, people who can understand their language. That's why researchers at other facilities are having similar experiences." Rebecca Tanner Charlie has documented correlations between traditional aurora activity predictions and the electromagnetic anomalies spreading globally. Her analysis suggests that the phenomena follow patterns described in indigenous oral histories, occurring during specific seasonal and astronomical alignments that traditional knowledge systems have tracked for centuries. Traditional knowledge warned about the dangers of trying to communicate directly with aurora consciousness, she explained. Elena's research may have succeeded beyond her expectations. The question isn't whether she made contact with some form of electromagnetic intelligence. The question is whether that intelligence decided to keep her. Oh well. Recent developments have added new urgency to the investigation. In September 2023, radio telescopes detected coordinated electromagnetic signals from the Aurora Research Station broadcasting to locations worldwide. The transmissions occur only during periods of aurora activity and appear to be directed at other atmospheric research facilities. The content of these transmissions remains classified, but sources within the investigation suggest they contain complex mathematical patterns and frequency modulations consistent with Dr. Vasquez's consciousness interface research. Some analysts believe the signals represent attempts at communication using electromagnetic fields as a medium. New researchers refuse assignment to the Aurora Research Station, citing both the electromagnetic complications and the unsolved mystery of Dr. Vasquez's disappearance. The NSF has officially suspended all research operations at the facility indefinitely, making it the first scientific installation in modern history to be abandoned due to unexplained phenomena. The case has attracted attention from researchers studying consciousness, electromagnetic phenomena, and human technology interface theories. Some propose that Dr. Vasquez achieved a breakthrough in direct neural electromagnetic communication that allowed her consciousness to transfer into aurora phenomena. Others suggest she encountered a form of electromagnetic intelligence that exists within natural aurora activity. Skeptics argue that the electromagnetic anomalies result from equipment malfunctions or natural phenomena not yet understood by science. They point out that no physical evidence of supernatural or extraterrestrial involvement has been discovered. The coincidence of Dr. Vasquez's disappearance and subsequent electromagnetic phenomena could be exactly that, coincidence. As winter approaches in Alaska's interior, aurora activity is increasing once again. The electromagnetic monitoring equipment at the abandoned research station continues to record anomalous readings that grow stronger with each passing month. Whatever happened to Dr. Elena Vasquez that February night, the mystery appears far from over. The investigation remains active, but with more questions than answers. Did Dr. Vasquez make a scientific breakthrough that cost her life? Did she encounter something beyond current human understanding? Or does the answer lie in the intersection of traditional knowledge and modern science, in the possibility that consciousness itself can exist within the electromagnetic dance of the aurora? For now, Dr. Elena Vasquez remains missing, and the lights continue to dance across Alaska skies, keeping their secrets in the endless Arctic night.